Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, November the 8th of 2025. And good day to everybody. And what a week it has been. Mamdani wins New York. What does this spell for the future of the state? Is Trump going to go to war with Dems here and cut off federal funding or anything else? Well, they're certainly not going to be bailing out New York. And they're going to be going after him in every possible way. And he's not going to be able to fulfill any of his promises. And now I'm finding out why, because the mayor has very limited power. He has to work in conjunction with the governor. And it doesn't look like they're willing to do any of the stuff. They certainly don't want to raise taxes. But still, the threat of it will empty out the last of those who were, just sort of teetering on the edge. There's a lot of people who will threaten to leave New York, but they won't. They've lived there their whole life. Their aging parents are there and won't leave. All the grandkids are there. There's people, they have some pretty deep roots in New York. So they're going to stay and fight for New York. In the meantime, many of the jewels on the crown of New York are being scattered throughout the United States. Not only is Miami and St. Petersburg and Fort Lauderdale and Orlando and West Palm Beach benefiting from this melee in New York State. It's not just New York City. It is the state of New York. But it's also places like Houston and Dallas and even Oklahoma City, I blabbed the other day, is going to be benefiting. So it's not going to be just like one town in the United States. It's going to be many. And I'll tell you where they're not going to be is in California, because that place is just, like I said, if you didn't make it out by the time they had the fires in LA, then you might as well just stick around, because it's just getting to the point that it's reached, its all-time low. And then that's when things start to turn around. So I am excited about the long-term benefits or the effect of the downgrade in California, forcing out these political leaders, and the turnaround being about 4 years. Whereas New York, the turnaround is going to take about 10 years, but it will not restore itself to its previous grandeur, whereas California will. That is the big difference. It's amazing when you have nice weather on your side. And, California has a lot of things going for it that it still has, whereas New York really just had such a big head start, and people were so grounded in New York State and New York City that kind of like no matter what you did to them, they weren't leaving. But now it's just gotten to that point, where it just doesn't make any sense anymore. And there's enough of like their people, their friends who are also leaving New York. Matt S. says, "Hi, Sam. You have mentioned many times that New York will never be the same as in the very near future as to what it was. What will happen with most of Trump's properties? Will he sell them before all of this happens, or just take the hit and recoup all of the losses from crypto?" Yeah, he's going to have to take the hit and then recoup the losses from crypto. It's unfortunate what is happening to the state of New York. And, folks who were on the Sam Jam a while ago, they were told a while ago that they should probably get out of New York State or at least sell their properties. The taxes are going to be huge. The crime was going to be unacceptable. And it has in the last 7 years that I've been doing this and talking about New York State, it came to fruition. I even said that when I was driving down through the U.S. that I would only stop for gas in the state of New York. Yes, to California recovering. I did feel like California would be in the doldrums for 4 years, and that New York City would be like 10 years, but never truly recover to where it was at before, because things will move to other places and just not move back.
Okay.
Right? Like they'll lose stuff like for good kind of thing, right? If you could get anybody who's in California, New York, or Oregon, if you could get out, but before the end of 2021, and I do see with cryptos that is going to be possible. It is. Whereas New York State, get the hell out. You're wasting your time there. New York State is never going to get back to its previous days of glory, even though with the golden age coming for America, pretty much every state in the United States is going to be doing well compared to the rest of the world. Is Mamdani going to become the next mayor of New York City? For Alt, a long time ago, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I talked about New York, and I said that there would be a huge exodus from New York and it would never recover from that. And a lot of folks thought that when COVID happened, that was the big exodus that I saw. A lot of people moved to Florida, and moved their businesses, and a lot of things have moved from New York City to even Texas. But I do believe that a huge exodus is going to happen when Mamdani is elected. Petra says, "Hi, Sam. Glad you're feeling better. What does the other side say or see about the election, and especially the new mayor of New York?" Early on, I knew that Mamdani was going to win. And I was, very much in disbelief over the weekend that it was actually going to go his way. In disbelief of my own prediction, just because listening to his speeches and what he was saying, and I was like, why can't they just see through all that and know he can't do any of that? And he's not going to be able to do any of that. New York is already on the trajectory that it's on due to COVID. There's nothing that can stop that train. So, yeah, I guess New York has just got to go through the motions, and it would have been nice to have a strong leader there, but I guess it doesn't really make a difference. Yeah. So, and that's so funny that that the new mayor of New York thinks that he is going to be able to manage Trump, as Bradley J says. He's just going to manage Trump. Yeah. Well, it's almost like he's been told to say these things. It's like waving a red handkerchief in front of a bull, because they're trying to get a reaction out of Trump. He's really busy, though. Trump is super busy, and once the tariffs don't go against him, once it's on side, then he's just going to be able to do that much more. Because unfortunately, a lot of countries are foot dragging, like Canada and China. Their enemies in America are the ones that are taking this to court. And when it all is said and done, this is going to be investigated, because the question is, who's spending all this money to try to subvert the United States? So Maud Spencer posted about Prince Andrew, that he's going to be stripped of his final military title by King. So we all saw that coming. Anyways, a few years ago, we were talking about how Prince Andrew wasn't going to get off. And one of the things I mentioned to Maud Spencer, I was like, remember when I said that he would be extradited, or that there would be a request put in for his extradition from Britain, and that I didn't see that they would fight it. And I wanted her to check and go dig deeper into that to see what the wording was. Because when stuff starts to come true, you want to figure out how much you got right and how much you got wrong. And then I started talking about Epstein and then Prince Andrew, and I said his mummy's not going to be very happy when she finds out what he's done with his money, right? So this story with Prince Andrew has legs, and I don't see him being arrested like quickly, but I do see that once the guilty pleas, because some of the politicians and financial people were involved in like bribery, kickbacks, but other people were turning a blind eye to sex trafficking. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is going to come out. And as it comes out during the trial, so maybe during Donald Trump's like second term, then they'll go and they'll actually request he's going to be extradited from Britain. But I don't see it happening like really soon. It's a bunch of other stuff, I guess, is going to happen before that happens. You know what? I think that things are not over for Prince Andrew. I would say not. Nobody's getting away. Why should he get away just because he's royalty? Because once they get James Comey, right? Once they arrest him, everybody knows they're going down the hole. Yeah, right? Thanks. Everybody knows. That's going to be like the shot heard around the arrest heard around the world, because they're going to know it's over. So right now, like these little ones, and where they're actually like they're sex trafficking, Prince Andrew. I mean, watch that one click carefully. That could be the undoing of the British crown. I did see that there was possibly going to be a scandal that they would not come back from. But I knew that Prince Andrew was not going to be off the hook if they were not done with him. Just because Epstein was dead and Ghislaine Maxwell was in jail. Oh yeah, no, it's like the FBI, they're getting serious about this stuff. And speaking about that, I mean, with the lockdown, holy cow. I mean, to me, a month isn't very long, but I think to some people it can be an eternity. And, if you're not getting your paycheck, wow. I was so glad to hear they were able to get some dough for at least the military, and there was a few other things that they were able to sponsor. But I think that it's going to be over with very soon. It wasn't something that was going to drag on for a long time, and the sort of the bad guys against America, they really paid a price this time because now they probably have dwindled in popularity to single digits. So yeah, and a lot of stuff has been uncovered. A lot of hardworking Americans are paying taxes and they don't mind, but they just don't want it to go to this wasteful scum, stealing their money, stealing their benefits. Oh my gosh, I heard that they threw 700,000 people off who were illegally collecting it. And there's all of these frauds being uncovered. So that's excellent news. And that is going to continue because remember, all this stuff comes out when they're investigating a lot of stuff. And, bad guys aren't usually just involved in one thing. So this isn't a coincidence that this is coming out. But I'm sure we'll get back to that with the questions that are posted in a moment because I got a lot to say. Okay, Mon Spencer says, many want to know whether the U.S. will be going to war with Venezuela or other Caribbean countries. Oh, no, they're going to fold like a cheap chair. Yeah. They don't, no boots on the ground. Probably maybe just a couple of bombs dropped or something to get them into submission. But you know what? I can't believe that many fishermen are being killed on those boats. I was saying before, yeah, there should be like maybe 6 tops because he's letting it play all on the social media and everywhere because he doesn't want them to do it. He's still thinking about these guys who really are getting paid an exorbitant amount of money to run that speedboat. But the thing is, they know what they're doing. Just like people who, try to get into the country with they're crossing and they have stuff in their luggage, and they end up in jail for 10 years or something. They're just going to keep doing that. I don't see anything serious going on with Venezuela or any Caribbean country. Everybody's going to calm down. And you know what? Donald Trump, in the way that he always does stuff, is he's going to make it worth their while. Because sometimes, he'll carry a big stick, but he also comes with something else as well. Because, isn't it in his best interest that the people of Venezuela start going home and start being able to build their own country? I mean, this is how he's thinking about it, is that, well, if they can be productive in their own country, we've got so many of them trying to get in here. And, we got to give the jobs to the people who are Americans first. And, these guys can fix their country. Why not us give them a hand up? Like, I have no problem with what he did for Argentina because, again, they'll have a good trading company, someone to trade with. The answer isn't always, whatever top dollar you can squeeze out of your other country opponent. You want to sort of find that balance. So he's doing a great job with that. And he's going to offer something to Venezuela, probably to do with her oil, like bringing people in, experts in, companies investing. Yeah. So I think that eventually, within the next couple of months, the lady who dedicated her Peace Prize to Donald Trump, I think that she's going to get in to lead the country. And then a lot of Venezuelans will start coming back as well, which is great because they really need that. Yeah, U.S. poised to strike military targets. And yeah, they'll strike them just with missiles. There's no boots on the ground. Why should they? It's just silly. They don't need to do that. Let's see. Do you think this will break the record for the largest government shutdown? How many days before the record funding will get restored? I don't think it's going to drag on too much longer. I mean, it uncovered so much. Oh my gosh. There was definitely, you know what? A lot of people, they wonder what they can do to sort of do their part. Well, I think even the people who are getting their back pay, it doesn't matter. They still went without and had all that stress to deal with as well. Of course, it's better if you get it back into a lump sum. You're like, man, money I would have never saved. Right? Got to look at the bright side. But they sacrificed for this change because everybody wanted to know, how can I participate in this great thing that's happening in America? And, some people, they go to war against another country and they send their soldiers. Well, This is a domestic war raging within the United States, and the people who are, paying the price are the electorate. So I think it's going to be pretty short and sweet, but most importantly, things are going to be set up so it doesn't happen again. This is really going to be a cathartic time for the United States of America and the countries they're setting an example for. This is why Argentina is getting that kind of support from Donald Trump and doing great things to help the country, and that is speaking volumes to all the other South American countries. Like I said, he's a dangerous guy. He carries a big stick, but he also is offering something else. Hey, we noticed you have some oil that needs to be refined there. Can we work together so you can sell that oil and we can make some money? I'm just using an example. Whereas right now they won't touch them with the 10-foot pole because they don't want any of the money going to Maduro. So once he's out of the way, things will really turn around for the country. Before I was feeling pretty hopeless about it because of the length of time. And, I'm just like, you feel better when you kind of get to that turning point, and hope it doesn't take another 3 years because it just seems like so many are just barely hanging on. Okay. But, I'd have to say overall, that's better news for Venezuela that now that Donald Trump's paying attention to them, trying to get things sorted out. So, Mod Spencer, markets are increasingly forecast another crypto bear market. What are your thoughts? Were you just seeing the headlines for September, or do you think this is the very last dip before we go up? Is the bottom 3.7 trillion as you predicted, or 3.5 trillion as the Blab showcases? Well, the 3.5 is probably like, catch it if you can. That's almost like it not coming true. If that's like the very bottom, something that is only there for like 2 minutes. It's just like, 2 minutes in crypto time. It's just like with silver. Remember it dipped down to $12 or $13? And I remember asking people, did you get any at that? I didn't get any at that price. When I saw that price, I was like calling my coin dealer, asking him, no silver to be bought. Nothing, not even the cheap stuff. So with cryptos, I'm not worried. As far as months go, I mentioned to someone on the Discord that I gave them a calendar again. I'm hoping for 2026 they can do a better job. There is a difference between September, October, and November, and I should be calling it a little bit closer at this time. But you can see I'm not worried, and there's quite a few people that I know who had some additional financial opportunities appear before them that they were able to make up for some lost bags. Tinkerbell wasn't kidding when she said she was very thankful for the opportunity to, stack her chips. Because, they're still, when people are still out earning money and building up their wealth, then yeah, great. You can dollar cost average in and make up for that time you were hacked. But pretty soon, yeah, it's going to get pretty sad if you didn't take advantage of the cheaper prices. So, Mod Spencer says it's interesting that since 2019, you've talked about 3 waves coming for crypto.
You previously stated that we are in the first wave of the rise of crypto and that there is a second, even larger next wave. Have your guides provided any marker for how big the first wave is?
One thing that I know is that the first wave and the second wave are very close together, and it's not going to be like a wave in the sense that it's going to be a deep dive. You know how a big wave comes in, but then there's an even bigger wave behind it, and it doesn't really go down. It just kind of goes into this bigger wave. We're going to go into this first wave, and then it'll crest, and then it'll take a little bit of a breather. Some might go down, some might go out of business. This is the problem, right? All the way, even on the way up, we're going to lose. Cryptos are going to close. There's some that are closed now. Then in 2021 and 2024, we've had 2 bull runs that have so far consisted of 3 visibly obvious waves each. Do you think we're going to have another 2-year bear market ahead of us, or break the pattern and go to the 5 trillion and beyond? So yeah, so if you're standing here on the beach, yeah, I think this one here, the third wave, this is going to keep going. Yeah. So when you're standing here, the third wave that you'd be able to see, it would have to be probably up to here, which is the 6 trillion. Yeah. Yeah. So it would be at the 5 trillion mark that if you're standing back here, Because remember, I always imagined it that I'm standing here. This is the beach. This is the ocean. And we're just looking at me from the side. I'm right here. So I'm standing right here. I can see this wave. And then this is close enough where you can see the next wave over that one. But to see these waves here, like I don't think from back here, I would have been able to see even this wave here because it's lower than this one. But yeah, once it's up around 5 trillion. So that's interesting. Spencer always knows how to pull this information out of me. So TD says, bought some Solana on October 10th at 175 in the last big dip. Have more orders to dollar cost average at 160 and 145. Do you think those prices will get down low this month? Right now we're at 3.62. So I'm going to go with 167.50. So I think that you'll get your 160 filled, but not the 145. I think the low, I'm going to guess, is going to be like 148. And don't shoot me. So this is not financial advice. I am swinging for that fastball, TD. So thank you for the challenging question. Again, I'm going to see how well I do with that. If I'm way off, I'm still not going to stop trying. So the crypto market bounced from 3.4 trillion to 3.5 trillion the last couple of days. Overall picture does not look great. Had 2 false starts in September, and now the market cap is struggling to maintain a floor of 3.5 trillion. What does the trusty finger chart say, and what should folks who are worried about their holdings do right now? Oh, I just say hold on. I know a lot of people can't dollar cost average in anymore. But the danger about getting into trading at this point in the game is that the move upwards is going to be pretty strong and swift, especially where the stuff that's going on is not crypto based. That still continues to be developed and supported across the board. And quantitative easing is coming. We see that. It's just that it's a little bit delayed more than anything. Being off on cryptos, it doesn't really matter because, if you're following the rules, don't FOMO in, don't leverage your money. It's not yours if you don't own it if you don't hold it, sort of thing, right? So this leveraging has been devastating for anybody who thought they could play that game. I mean, a trillion, 1 trillion pullback. I mean, that's just crazy. But we've seen that before, and that's what cleans out the leveraging. But it looks like that's where it's settling, is at the 3.5. So up from there. Surprise this week was, not so much for us, knowing that it's going to be a late riser. We had a nice number up on Digibyte just in the last, if you look at the last week, it's up 45%. So not too badly there, not too shabby. So we're looking at some unknowns are the top gainers. So that's just telling me that actually Internet Computer didn't do too bad. And it shows you how sad things are when they're putting under the trending gala. But there were a lot of people who were taken in by gala, that's for sure, including myself. Now, but just like anything, when it's off in Pluto land, as tempting as it is to buy all kinds, you just should not because of, what's going on right now. I see Bitcoin is just over 100,000. So that seems to be the number where it's more comfortable, is around the $100,000 range. Going back 2024, 2023, it seems like forever ago, even though it went by just like that. And one of the, I smiled when I got something in the inbox and it said something about Bitcoin going to 63,000. Do you think Bitcoin can make it to 63,000? And it was for back in 2023. So I was like, yeah, we've come a long way. And look at that, another super, super deal on Ethereum. So like I said, anything under $4,000, there'll be a day that people will say, yeah, I got my ETH at $200, $400. Even getting it at 3,200 is a good deal at this point. Because, now it's baked in the cake. Now it's going to be one of the runners. We all know that. XRP is down at 226. So again, getting ready for an easy 4 to 5 timeser. I would say closer to a 5 timeser on this next run. And Solana has been holding on to the 150s. I did hear, though, that it went as low as, I can't remember if it was 145 or 148 was the low. I know, it was like say it isn't so, because at that time I think it was around 160. But again, that seemed to be the floor for Solana. It's turning around. It's down 16% on the week, so still a really good buy for people who just never had a chance to get much in the way of Solana. So, and if you planned on getting some NFTs, it's probably a good chance to get some Solana cheap. Doge, 17.4 cents. So again, very long way from the floor of 5 cents that was called back in early 2021. And now it seems like a dream where it's 17 cents. And Cardano, super cheap, down 9%. I do think on the turnaround that Solana will do better on the turnaround. Just having to, again, each run is different. Let's check out another one of my faves, Hyperliquid. That's tipped over the $40 again. But Chainlink is still down. Actually, anything below $20 on Chainlink is a good deal. So it's quite a bit below that. It's down 11.5% on the week. And Stellar, considering the blood on the street, Stellar being at 28 cents, not too bad at all. So let's see. I am Richie. Sam, will Trump get the Republicans on the side to end the filibuster this week? I think that he's going to end the filibuster. Yeah, because see, the Democrats are doing this just because they're so desperate. That's why they're stuffing the ballot boxes too, to make sure that they, flipped a few states blue. Because Trump is doing an awesome job. And people are like, thank God. And they know that by the time they're into 2026, the economy is going to be fantastic. And even more of the shenanigans that were played in the Biden and the Obama White House, it's going to be, even when Trump was in, the stuff that was done behind his back, more and more of that is going to come out. So they knew that they had to try to keep power. So there was a lot of ballot box stuffing, and it was all in areas as well that they could stuff the ballots and tip it over in favor. So more important than ever that the cheating comes to an end. These mail-in ballots, this has got to come to an end, because again, this is the number one way that they're cheating. Theo Powers one says, "Hi Sam, a member of the Conservatives crossed the floor of Canadian federal parliament to join the Liberals. Will any more be crossing and giving the Liberals and Carney a majority parliament? Thanks." I don't think so, Theo Powers. I believe that individual did it just for himself, like totally, completely, 100% did it for himself, for what he could get for himself. It was just a power grab, not truly representative of the people. And the Carney government, I don't believe, is going to be in power after double-digit unemployment comes out in Canada next year. I expect it'll be double-digit, unfortunately. So just hang in there, my Canadian friends. I'll keep you abreast of what's going on, what direction we should be going in. But this is going to be, a little bit of, a short-term blip. Yeah. Because I thought Pierre Poilievre was going to get in like right away, just like with Trump, right? But it was like, nope, I guess we have to suffer in Canada, just like the Americans had to suffer. Yeah, there are some things that I'm just not meant to see. Sometimes I figure out later on why that is, but not when I'm in it. I mean, the crypto stuff, it's obvious why I wouldn't have exact timing on that. That's very obvious why, because, there's some self-protection built in there. As long as I get the main stuff right, that, this is going to take off once the X payments, and to remind people that X payments are coming. And it's all part of the everything all at once. Beatrix says Poland keeps having opposition to the government. Do you see Poland having better relationships with the EU and the financial stability improving? I don't see them having a better relationship with the European Union, but I do see them, once the Russia-Ukraine war comes to an end, Poland will also benefit by that greatly. they'll have a lot of their people who are not earning a living. They will return to Ukraine because that's where their homes are. They were just too afraid to live there. And, therefore is also like their neighborhood, their, support system is there in Ukraine. But what'll happen for Poland is the people who did get a good job there will stay there. They will, and things will improve for Poland because there's going to be a lot of money pouring into the Ukraine to rebuild it, just like with Gaza. They're going to rebuild Gaza. There's going to be money pouring into the Ukraine to rebuild it. So, of course, that's going to benefit Poland, right, as the neighbor next door, just like with all of the wealth and manufacturing pouring into the United States. Mexico is going to benefit because they got themselves in a much better position ahead of Canada, thanks to the feckless leaders in Canada. Whereas Canada would have been the first choice, it's now the second choice. And when there's only two to choose from, as far as neighbors go, that's really bad that happened. But, it only takes a little bit to turn around the Canadian economy because there are only 40 million people there versus 140 million in Mexico. So Donald says, given the growing political separation between blue-red states, do you see any future succession attempts? Going to blue states seems like visiting another country. Thanks. I don't think there'll be any succession because, again, it's just the loud and noisy crowd that is like this. It's not the majority, it's the minority. It's just that they're so nasty and loud, so they're only about maybe 10 to 15%, but, they're a problem. They feel righteous. They feel that you are less than them. They feel like that you're stupid. So it's just going to have to go, state by state. And what'll happen is that they'll be coming with their cap out because the successful people are going to leave. That's been going on in Canada for a long time. If you look at the east coast of Canada, the people have been, what they call it, going down the road. That's been for a very long time. So that's what's going to happen in a lot of the blue states. And it's going to become very noticeable as, places like Tennessee, for example, and Arkansas and Wyoming and all of these places that are red are going to be getting favoritism from companies moving manufacturing into the United States. Because they're like, well, we don't want to set up in a blue city because their taxes are exorbitant. It's unsafe. It's expensive to get rent for our employees. If you're setting up manufacturing and an entry-level job is paying, like 40, 50,000 a year, and the top-end jobs are paying 120,000, you want to make sure that there are homes available for people of all income levels. And that's going to be a big part of it. So you'll see that. So keep an eye on that, where the companies are setting up, where they're buying large swaths of land, where the manufacturing is going on, where these factories are being built up. Remember, they need to be near an international airport as well, so they can fly their supplies out or put it on the train. So yes, so good things overall for the United States, and eventually the blue states will come online because the Democrats are just going to have to be put out of business 100%. You just can't have that type of insanity reigning. And Frank says, hi, Sam. Will inflation continue to get worse or better? Thank you. It's okay. So inflation is still going to be around, and the real inflation is going to be probably double of what they're actually reporting. But it's going to be good in the sense that much of it is happening or is caused by the increase in wages. So this is going to be the benefit, is that, yes, inflation, but it's because wages are higher. So you might not be making more money, but your brother-in-law supporting your sister and 3 little kids, he's making more money from his job. Interest rates are going down. Therefore, the price of housings have, pretty much leveled off, and people can now go in and buy a home and, get back into those interest rates where it's, more around the 4% range. So Jose says, AI bubble is about to explode. Crypto will suffer huge setbacks as a result. Will the White House provide a bailout? What do you see? Well, I don't think that AI is going to have this big bailout. I don't. I think that a lot of people did get it on the AI run. I know I did it. I was kind of. A lot of people were asking me about that. I was like, meh. You guys can see I had very little to no interest in the AI models. I mean, I said, well, I think Near is considered an AI coin. Um, but again, I was never, huge into that. So I wouldn't worry about that, Jose. I don't see any bailouts coming for any of that stuff. And Dragonfly says, will the Democrats cave soon? Oh, yeah, they're caving now. They're caving now because you know what? Once people can't get on their flights for Thanksgiving, like I don't know exactly when Thanksgiving is, but I think that that's coming up soon. Yeah, people aren't going to tolerate that, not being able to fly for Thanksgiving. So, yeah, the government will definitely be up and running soon because they are putting that squarely at the feet of the Democrats. And the Democrats just use this as an opportunity to cheat in their blue states. So they didn't even actually win those states, they just cheated again. Did you see the profit taking from NASDAQ Fab 5 stocks fueling our crypto? Thanks. I think more the quantitative easing that's coming and all the other stuff that they have planned for the American economy. The tax cuts, the golden age being upon you in the United States. There's no way the Democrats want the government to get back into the swing of things because that's when things are really going to start turning around economically. And you'll really see the difference in 2026. So they're doing whatever they can to ruin it. But yeah, I think we're going to be fine, guys. So hang in there. I know we're at just almost at the 1 hour now. So I'm going to be doing the premium shortly. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in on Coffee Chat hopefully tomorrow. And I'll see the premium members shortly. Bye for now.